I'm Greg DeRocher, and this is Chamber Web TV, focusing on election 2018 and the candidates for both Cambridge and Kitchener South-Hespeler. Here in our studio today is a candidate for the Liberal Party from the riding of Kitchener South-Hespeler, Surekha Shenoy. Surekha, how are you?
Very good, Greg. How are you?
I'm wonderful. It's been a little while since you and I have had a conversation.
Absolutely.
Because you've now have retired as chair of the Cambridge Memorial Hospital Foundation, so...
I'm not yet retired.
Oh, aren't you?
No, I'm the past chair of the foundation.
Oh, of course,
board,
you still have some
Yes,
responsibilities
yes,
to maintain there.
Yes, a few more months and
So
I'll be done.
we know each other through that experience.
Absolutely.
We have a major capital campaign underway, and things are going very, very well. But Surekha, it kind of surprised me. Why politics?
Well, it surprised me too. Let me tell you that. I've lived in this community for over 2 decades now, and I've done a lot of volunteering in the community, had the opportunity and the privilege to serve the community by sitting on the foundation, Cambridge Memorial Hospital Foundation Board. I was the chair last year, and through that opportunity, I got I had the opportunity to see what the hospital does to the community, like all the things the hospital provides for the community.
And you got
also,
the bug.
Yes, and I got the bug. And you know what the community needs to do? That was one of my primary goals as I sat on the board, was to make our community aware of the needs of this community to engage and make sure, we have the best healthcare in the community. And that's what I was doing. And as I was doing that, the opportunity came by to serve the community at a higher level.
Good.
And what better way to serve people
So-
than to be their voice?
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Me?
Yeah.
Where do you want me to start? I grew up in India.
Yes.
So I did my undergrad in India in engineering, and I came to Saskatchewan. That was really a long time ago when there was no internet, no cell phones. Cell phones were rare those days, even recently until 1990. We didn't have cell phones. So I came to Saskatchewan to do in pursuit of higher education and to have a better opportunity for me and my family. And from there on, my story started. I went to Newfoundland. My older daughter was born in Newfoundland. And then I came to this region, Waterloo region. I've lived in all 3 cities. So, I'm a child of I'm citizen of this region.
Yep.
And went to Laurier, did my MBA there.
Oh, good.
And loved it. And then I switched into banking. So I worked I commuted to Welland. I worked for Canadian Tire there. So I did the commute, driving all the way there every day. And I don't know how I did it. But
That gets old fast.
yeah, that's right. And then I moved to Toronto and to the financial services industry.
Okay.
And I was very successful. I'm very passionate about what I do. There's no two things about it. And then, at a certain point, the inner thing inside me was to give back to the community.
Serve.
So
I think that's everybody's calling that gets involved with politics, and I think it's certainly honorable, and really we need people to be passionate about serving and giving back, because it's very important. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce went out over the last probably 18 months or so and talked to businesses across the province and talked to chambers across the province, and we came up with our platform, our 4 pillars behind our program called Vote Prosperity for the 2018 election. There are 4 pillars, as I said. One is strengthening business competitiveness, fostering job creation, building healthy communities, and improving government accountability. So I want to go through some of those and get your reaction to some things, but more importantly, I want you to take the opportunity to tell us where the Liberal Party going forward will stand on a number of these issues. So we'll start with the pillar number 1, strengthening business competitiveness. The electricity file is much talked about. Everybody's talked about what do we do with it, how do we fix it, how do we... One of the things that the Ontario Chamber of Commerce has said is why not allow Ontario businesses to purchase a surplus electricity at equal or better than exported prices? Why not the electricity that we generate here, rather than give it away or sell it off cheap? Why don't we let local businesses buy it cheaper? How do you feel about that? How does the Liberal Party feel about that?
Your question is fair, and I understand it's logical to ask that question. I have to take it back to my party in terms of understanding where it is. This is my, like I said, this is my first time into politics.
Yeah.
So there is the understanding of it's a fair ask from the businesses as to the reasons. But I don't know what the response has been, or has that ask been made yet?
I think the ask has probably been made. I think, at this point, the government generally takes, everything in and absorbs everything and does their own rationale. I think one of the obstacles to something like this is that the government probably looks at it right now and says, if we sell our surplus electricity to another jurisdiction, we're getting revenue for that. Are we able to get the same type of revenue out of it if we sell it locally? So I think there's a lot of complex issues around that, and how do we do that? How do we make that happen? I think is maybe complex, but I think that is demonstrating from our perspective, from the Chamber's perspective, is saying we need to look at all avenues of possibilities in order to reduce costs. It doesn't matter whether it's for residents or whether it's for business. We should look at all. The Liberal government put a hold or a stop on reducing corporate taxes. They are now hinting at doing some more reduction of corporate taxes, but also the employer health tax. As you probably know, right now in a small or medium-sized business, for over 20 years now, the benchmark has been $400,000 of payroll before they have to start paying health tax. You have a background as chairing the foundation. What the Ontario Chamber is saying is not reducing that health tax necessarily, but maybe we should be looking at increasing that from $400,000 threshold to maybe a $600,000 or higher, because many of these small businesses who are affected by Bill 148, their payroll has now jumped up beyond that $400,000. So should we be looking at that? How do you feel about that?
Absolutely. My background is in small business. When I worked, I looked after the small business portfolio.
Yep.
So I understand the challenges small businesses face, and the amount of struggle they have to succeed. So I'm totally on side in terms of understanding the struggle small businesses face. So this, what you're asking, is a very again I say this a logical thing, and that's why I say I want to be the voice of this community to make sure your voices are heard. These are fair asks, and I know from what our party stands for and what our government has done, it cares about everybody. It's not just about one person or the other. It cares about businesses too. It has provided a lot of subsidies, grants, with the minimum wage increase that we had done, rightfully so, that Ontarians need. At the same time, we also understand small businesses also face challenges, and they're doing a lot of things, and they have committed to listening to the small businesses and understanding their perspective and helping them. So I say that, I'm sure if I get elected, I will make sure that we represent your concerns
Good.
there. And
Yeah,
stand for
I
them.
think, I think there's no question about that. And we all understand from the perspective of maybe big government looking down in maybe a broad perspective at some of these great big corporations who maybe don't have the treatment of employees right yet, aren't paying the employees properly. But the largest segment is small business. 98.6% of all employer businesses are small, defined as small. They employ 70% of the population.
Yes.
And they create 80% of all the new jobs.
Yes.
So they're a powerful and important sector. They just don't have this real collective, strong voice that they can go and sit down at every table
Yeah,
with.
I'm that voice.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where some of the frustration is. And I think when we look back at Bill 148, I can absolutely tell you with confidence, because I talked to thousands of business owners, that the $15 an hour was not as big an issue. Yes, they would have liked more time to implement that. That was, they felt was way too quick because their business planning cycles aren't 14 months. They're usually 2, 3, 4 years out. But that aside, I think the real issue that I see from my perspective is if the ideology behind making that change was to take care of people who are working in poverty, that rather than broad brushing everybody that makes minimum wage, because 89% of them come from multi-income families, so they're not the working poor. There's only about 8% of them that are in that category that are actually trying to survive on a minimum wage and raise a family. Why can't we have programming that slices and dices and targets that 8%? Because they probably need more than $15 an hour.
Like,
And so, you know, maybe rather than that entire piece of legislation that talked about that, maybe we should have tried to figure out a path to how can business help that segment of the population that we really need to uplift. It's something, you know, they talk about universal living wage.
correct.
You know, is that the future?
You know, a good point, living wage. So I was doing some research. What people don't understand is our minimum wage is way below the minimum living wage. And, you know, so I know there's angst with the small businesses in terms of the minimum wage right now. But we also need to, I know you're saying it's 8%. But who is that 8%? How do you classify? There's a lot of complexities in going after that population. But as a person, I say individually, multi-income could be true. But at some point, our children need to move out of their houses.
Yeah.
So, you know, do they become, multi-income families? No.
Yeah.
So I strongly believe, the minimum wage had to go up because of our living wage is, something we need to be cognizant about,
Yeah.
right? And so the good thing, like you said, most small businesses I've spoken to understand we need to help
Yeah,
people,
for sure.
right? It's I say it's a sudden shock
Yeah.
to the business, but I say the government is doing everything it can to help by reducing the corporate small business tax rate, providing incentives, grants, subsidies. There's so many funds available out there to help small businesses. Sometimes I feel, I think it's a true thing, we are not aware of all the potential help that is out there. And, it's something I say education is very important to know what's available and how to make sure small businesses can reach out and get that.
I think in Bill 148, there were 173 different regulations. One of them was minimum wage. The other 172 have created issues for small business, and we probably should have sat back and taken a look at some of that. But that's maybe for
We're continuing to work.
Yeah,
We're continuing. This government is all about working.
No, I know.
together.
We had the premier at our OCC annual general meeting, and she talked about the formula for part-time workers for holiday pay is going to be rejigged because they found that that's out of sync. So I think there is lots of work that needs to be done, and the chamber will continue to work towards those. I want to get on to number 2, fostering job creation and modernizing the apprentice system. I think really what's important is we need to really start matching industries with talent. So we need to make sure that our education system, especially our post-secondary education systems, are concentrating and making available enough positions for some of these emerging jobs that are coming out in the STEM field and in a number. Right now, if you want to be a STEM student, you have to have pretty high grades to get into university. Not because you need to be that smart necessarily, it's because there's only so much room. And I think, how can the government work towards making sure that there's a better integration between the jobs that are needed in the education system that's providing that?
Well, there's a focus on STEM, and Conestoga College is right here.
Yeah.
And there is a what is it called? We need to increase our skill traits. There's no question on that. So there is a lot of opportunities available right now.
Yeah.
I know we have to be proud that we attract the best talent in Waterloo
Yeah,
in this region,
yeah.
right? There's no question on that. We are the Silicon Valley of the North. So those are important things. I know that there's a shortage of skilled workforce here in this region. That's to feel good about it. How do we increase? Our institutions are the best here. How do we work It's through conversations.
Yeah.
And making sure the programs are there. I'm sure that those conversations are happening right now.
Yeah.
We continue to have more conversations and make more programs aligned with what the community needs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think it's really important. You know, it's hard to hire people right now. It's
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing,
It's
yes,
good
but
for the
it's bad
economy.
for the business
Correct, I
who
agree.
can't move forward. Pillar number 3 is building healthy communities, and I know this will be a passion for you. One of the things that the Ontario Chamber and the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce are really starting to focus on is something that we think is really important to business, because it's drawing that straight line between some of the issues we see, homelessness, opioid addiction, all of those kinds of problems. Mental health. Mental health is something that we really need to concentrate on as a society. Identifying those issues, providing avenues and opportunities for especially employers to be able to help their employees when there are mental health issues that come up. Because the last thing is you don't want an employee dealing with trouble or issues in their life that are going to affect their productivity.
Absolutely.
And if a business can help that, I think we need to have those toolkits. So how does government and business work together to address some of those things?
You know, this government has made one of the biggest investments in mental health and addiction. So mental health is something that everybody is focused on. That is the most important, I think, health issue to make a healthy community, first of all, and productivity to increase. There's no question in anybody's mind, a healthy mind is a productive mind at work. And how do we help? We have to have open conversations, which is not happening today.
Right.
It's we have a long way to go, and that is why we are investing and making sure it's starting at a primary level. Actually, in schools, this government has committed to having a counselor in every school, so that secondary school, so that children have the ability to have the conversation. You start from the ground up and make sure the foundation, as you bring them up, they have the they can come forward and have that conversation openly to stem it help them before it gets to an adult age. So I think we are doing the right thing to start at the bottom and help them as they become mature adults coming into the workplace.
I think we gotta start being proactive instead of reactive.
Correct.
You know, I can remember years ago having a conversation with a heart specialist in town who said to me, Greg, we need to get the government focused on being proactive, not reactive, because the only time I get paid is when I'm standing over you on a gurney with the paddles in my hand. We need to start talking about preventative care. And we can mitigate a number of these social issues in our community if we address the core cause, and the core cause oftentimes we find is mental health. So I think it's going to be a priority of business going forward, and hopefully it's a priority of government
Mental
going
health
forward.
and healthy community starts at home too, right? We need to make sure.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
It's where I feel everything starts at home. Have
Yeah.
a healthy family.
Yeah.
And I say the minimum wage and bringing there's so much this government is doing to make sure that foundation, the children have the right start. And that's very important to help have this conversation on mental health.
I would agree. Improving government accountability, that's been a talk. I think your government brought forward the Financial Accountability Office, identified that. That was an NDP solution to a problem that your government embraced and started. The Auditor General has not been kind to your government over the last number of years. Who's right, the Auditor General or your government?
So, one, when you said it was the NDP, it shows our government is open to ideas and working with everyone. Good ideas, we'll take it from anywhere, and that's what I like too. If there's any idea, we are open to listening and using it, because it's in the end you're working for the people, and that's important. In terms of what you said about the who is right, it's about accounting practices. So I leave it to the people to decide. It's not for me to judge who is right. It's about accounting practices, and I'll leave it at that, as to let the people decide.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. Should we called for this, the chamber movement across the province called for accountability when it came to Bill 148. We wanted an independent government review to make sure that that the government was aware and that the people were aware of the effects and the possibilities of this. The government refused to do that. The Ontario Chamber, along with a number of other organizations, funded CanSIA, who does a lot of work for the provincial government, to do an independent study to find out the effects and the problems. And I think, for the most part, what we could conclude was we know why the government didn't want to do it. It didn't paint a really rosy picture on the effects of Bill 148. Do you not think that we should be making sure that in every piece of legislation that we've got all of the information, both the good and the bad, that are going to come with us, and that we evaluate it based on the overall outcome as opposed to maybe making it look political in nature?
Absolutely, Greg. Like, I come with a fresh mind here, and I'm entering politics for the same reason. I'm like, whatever you're saying is exactly what I've been doing, is in terms of we have to pros and cons.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the consultations were done. I know you're saying they didn't listen. I don't know in terms of any, this government or any political government in fact, they do weigh the pros and cons. But I'll tell you one thing, people needed a raise. Families needed a raise, and we had to do that. Consider it political or not, but I think this government cares about all Ontarians, and you see a lot of people are struggling to have a basic standard of living, and that's something which troubles me. We need to do what's right for them too, and help them come along, because you know what, one day they become, they too should have the opportunity to pursue their dreams. They too should have the opportunity to succeed, and they contribute to our economy. This government is all about improving the economy, having productive citizens who contribute to our economy, grow our GDP. It brings in more taxes. We all succeed in the end. You know, this is about long-term vision. I feel our government does a long-term vision, and it's strategic in how it does its policies, rather than short-term vision of the opposition. I feel that's one of the reasons, you know, I'm all about strategy and making sure whatever we do, we use our long-term vision to make sure that it, in the long run, it actually benefits the entire community, the province, and the country as well.
No, good answer, absolutely. Do term limits make sense to you?
I think it should.
It's just something I'm throwing out.
No,
you know.
I honestly believe we should have term limits, only because there are a lot of people out there who also are good leaders who should have
I don't know what that would look like coming off the page, but you know,
But I do believe we should have term limits in terms of getting fresh ideas and fresh new leaders in. There's no question in my mind.
I think everybody has their best before date.
Yes.
You know,
Absolutely.
and absolutely everything.
There's no
we
question
get into.
that we should all, and I do that even in everything I do.
Of course,
you know, you have to have a succession planning. You should have other leaders come in, and give them. It's not okay for me to say I'm the only leader. No, no, right? So in terms
the other thing that interests me along that line, and you know, this kind of came to mind as we were going through a lot of public policy debates, both provincially and federally, and I think technology is now at a place where it's pretty easy for you to reach out and get a pulse of what's going on. You know, do you think it would be wise for governments to now look at formally being able to develop some sort of official ability for them to, when they have great big policy legislative changes, maybe even the budget annually, where they can actually go out to the public and say, look, here is where we want your feedback. Go use the internet and get on there and give us feedback. And part of the problem is, I think, Surekha, that we find is, you know, most political parties understand that you need 39% of the popular vote to get elected. But the reality of it is, you and I, as citizens of the province, we want whatever government is elected to do what's in the best interest of the majority of Ontarians, not just their 39%. So I think if we utilize technology to do more plebiscites, and maybe they're not ironclad because everybody's worried about hacking, but if you did kind of a formal plebiscite online, at least it would give you a clear foundation. You know, are we going in the right direction, or do Ontarians as a whole think this is maybe not the right thing? How do you feel about that?
I'm growing up in a technology world right now.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. And I want you to know our party, actually, for our party platform, did exactly that. They reached out to the community, to our liberal family, and we did it was exactly what you said.
Yep.
So I'm 100% positive.
So if
that's
you
our
can do
next
it by
step.
party, you can do
We
it.
will
you
go
can
out, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's,
I think that's important.
It's absolutely, and I personally believe we will. But it's a journey,
Yeah.
and we all voted in
Yeah.
terms of, and it took that as the party thing rather than a few deciding what it is.
I think that's maybe the frustrating part for a lot of people. Is a lot of people see these governments become majority governments, and then listen to their people, but don't listen to the majority people. And yet every single one of them says, well, wait a minute, I'm the premier or the prime minister or the mayor for everybody.
Yes.
And yet, they seem to just fall back on their laurels. And I think it's really important for good, strong political leadership to say, okay, everybody's had their vote. The majority didn't vote me in, but my responsibility is now to the majority. And I need to be making sure I'm listening to all angles.
I'm confident our party is gonna go there, because we did this as for the internal party platform.
Yeah.
We voted, and it was like, I don't know if it was thousands, but hundreds and hundreds of policy suggestions that came from the community. And honestly, it was nice to see that the grassroots were involved in the party platform, and we came to that. And I'm this party is all about Ontarians. As we get elected, I'm positive we'll be in that position where we want to hear from every community member, not just a few.
Yeah.
And that's what we believe in.
Excellent. Surekha, I want to give you an opportunity to speak right to the riding constituents of Kitchener South-Hespeler. So give them a message as to why they should vote for you.
Thank you for Greg, first of all, for having me here. I want to know, I am your community candidate, or a Liberal Party candidate for Kitchener South-Hespeler. I have lived in this community for over 23 years, and I want you to know that I am very passionate about this community. As a mom for two beautiful girls, I want them to have a bright future in this community. So does everyone who lives in this community need to have access to world-class education, sustainable health care, senior care, daycare, and everything that one should have to potentially achieve their dreams. Our community needs a strong voice at Queen's Park, and I will be that voice for you. On June 7th, I ask you to vote for me, Surekha Shenoy. Thank you for your support.
Surekha, thanks very much. It's great to see you again,
Thank you.
and good luck. Wear out a couple pairs of shoes and enjoy the campaign writ period. I know you're going to love this.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love meeting people because it's nice to hear their story.
Yeah, for sure.
What works for them and what doesn't work.
Exactly.
Thank you.
We hope the videos help you make an informed decision on June the 7th. We encourage you to reach out, talk to the candidates, and ask questions on issues that affect you most. And please vote on June the 7th. I'm Greg DeRocher for the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.